Hmm, where did I put that? Aha! There it is. We'll take that. What's going on, guys, and welcome back to Upper Left RC. Today we're going to be building a test rig to test the incline capabilities of the 24 scale rigs I got. I'm going to need this grip tape, this hinge, and this piece of wood. First thing we got to do, get this wood smooth. So I've got this wood here, and it's pretty granular, and it definitely hurts if I get a sliver. So we're going to sand it down. First I grab the power sander and really work this thing over. I'm talking full power tools, baby. Ow, that part hurts. Ah, buttery smooth. Here's a little time lapse of me sanding down the wood. Isn't it fun? Look, I'm a handyman. Now I will say this went a lot quicker than I thought it did. First I used a pretty aggressive grit sandpaper, then I went over with a smoother one, and I got it as smooth and nice and soft as possible. I picked out this piece of wood because it was really cheap at the hardware store, and wood is not cheap right now, so figured I could sand it rather than buy a smooth piece. Next, I gotta cut this thing in half. Thank God I've got this skill saw. All right, now we're down to 2 pieces. Let's install the hinge. The hinge is so I can adjust the height of the incline. Got my power tools. Just gonna line the hinge up on the edge here. Make sure I center that screw as best I can so the hinge doesn't move around, and bam, screwed it to the table. Not really, but it was close. The screws that the hinge came with were just a little bit longer than they needed to be, but that's all right, we could take care of that. Next, we're gonna line up the second piece. I went ahead and did the hinge design this way so that it could fully collapse. If I flipped the hinge around the other way, it would be at a max incline and it wouldn't be able to adjust the height very well. Went ahead and sunk the rest of the screws into this thing, and now we have basically a restroom sign on its side. You remember those little yellow restroom signs? Now I took a spatula and a hammer and smoothed out the nails. This actually worked really effectively, and it didn't push the it didn't push the screws through, which was nice. I just wanted to get rid of the sharp edges. It's pretty much level with the wood now. The last thing I did was take a damp paper towel, not super soaking wet. I don't want to get the wood really wet. Just wanted to wipe it down, make sure I got all the sawdust off. Nice and clean surface. Then I took a dry one, went over it one more time, and then I let it dry out a little. Now that we've got a dry piece of wood, it's time to apply the grip tape. So I got this roll of grip tape offline. I believe it is for a skateboard, but it was actually a lot longer than a skateboard. Little known fact, I actually used to skateboard back in high school, so I have done grip tape on my boards before. It's been a long time, so this process could have gone a little smoother, I think. I didn't want to waste the entire roll. I might want to use some of this grip tape for something else later, so I tried to just line it off to one side and save the other side with the wrapper still on it. It was kind of finicky, but I ended up getting it in the end. Just needed to cut that little cardboard backer paper stuff along the edge. Looking back now, I probably could have just measured out the roll and cut the whole thing in half and just worked with the pieces I needed, but you live and you learn. Now that we've got it on there solidly, I went ahead and pressed it on, smoothed it out. I'm going to take the back side of my knife and just scrape along the edge of the wood. This is similar to what you would see for somebody putting grip tape on a skateboard for. It kind of scores the edges, makes it easier to cut, and gives you a clean line of where you're going to cut. You see in the scene here, I went from the top. It actually was a lot more effective to go from the back side, because then I made sure I was cutting right along the edge of the wood, and I didn't snag the grip tape like I did in that scene right there. After I did the larger side of grip tape, I did the other 3 edges of the wood. It went a lot smoother on the other 3 sides, cutting from the back side. I cleaned up the edges, and then I had that strip of grip tape from the smaller side left over, and I thought I'll put it on the back side so that whatever I use to prop this thing up and create angles, it'll get a better grip on. So we're left with basically the rig itself with the grip tape on the back. I had this little edge on the back side there that was hanging over, so I went ahead and took the skill saw, cut it off, and that's what I'll use to adjust the angle. It actually worked out great, and the grip tape was really handy. I also picked up this. It's an AccuMaster angle measurer thing. But it's very accurate and it's great. I don't have to use my wife's cell phone like I did almost a year ago now when I was doing this test before. I went ahead and set it to 25 degrees to show how accurate it could be, and it holds really well. It can be a little finicky, but the adjustability is really nice, just having that loose piece of wood. I didn't need anything any more complicated than that. The last step was making it easy for the rigs to get on. Because of this hinge and the design, I went ahead and just grabbed one of my rocks that I normally use. This one is kind of shaped like a ramp anyways. It lined up right with the edge of the hinge, and when the board is at an incline, it actually makes it really easy for them to crawl onto, so we're good to go there. Now that I've got all of it set up, I just need to grab my rigs and test them out. I grabbed a couple. I grabbed the Jeep, the Chevy C10, and the Bronco that we recently did the builds on. I'm going to start with 30 degrees and the Jeep. We'll see how it does. I don't have high hopes for the Jeep, just because it is pretty top heavy and still stock at 317 grams. It crawled up the 30 degree incline okay, as pretty much any vehicle should. Next, I moved straight to 45 degrees. Don't know why I didn't go to 40, but I went straight to 45, and as you can see, it has a hard time. It actually won't make it up 45. I also didn't then back it down to 40 degrees to see if it would work. Beyond me, but it fell. And then I thought, you know, that big battery I just did this build with is in the back. I bet it'll go up backwards, and sure enough, crawls right up, no problem. At this point, I was actually pretty impressed with how well it crawled up there backwards. I got a different camera angle just so you could see kind of how steep 45 degrees actually is, in case you didn't have any frame of reference. And it does pretty good backwards. And the fact that it couldn't do it forwards, and it does it this easy backwards, is kind of crazy. I then shifted it to 50 degrees, and I was like, nah, it's not gonna make it, and sure enough, it did make it. Now you can see that far backside rear tire is hanging in the air. This is at its absolute max for incline. Anything above 50 degrees and it probably wouldn't make it. But once I get this thing finalized and get the battery mounted to the front of the vehicle, it should be able to climb up forwards like that. Next, we're going to check out the Bronco. At 528 grams, it is the heaviest. We're just going to start right at 40 degrees. Nice and simple test. Now, this is still a stock chassis. It's not a low center of gravity chassis. It's nothing particularly special other than a ton of added weight. And as you can see, it crawled up it just fine. I then moved it to 50 degrees, assuming that if the Jeep can make it backwards, the Bronco should make it just fine. And sure enough, it made it just fine. It wasn't really even that much of a challenge for it. It seemed to be handling it okay. I went ahead and bumped the throttle as I was backing down in reverse just to see if I could get it to stop or if I could get it to jump and tip, and it did okay. It had great grip. Next, we're going to go to 55 degrees, and this is where things start to get a little crazy. 55 degrees is pretty steep of an incline, but the Bronco was able to do it, believe it or not. Now, there are other rigs in this class and size that can crawl even steeper, but for a stock rig with just essentially added weight and nothing else, I was really impressed. Now you can see it does kind of slowly lose grip as the tires spin, and if I leave it alone, it does just slide backwards on its own. I went up to 57 degrees. I figured from 55 to 56 wasn't much of a difference, so I bumped it up 2 degrees, and this is where we met our limit. So its ability to climb an incline is somewhere between 55 and maybe 56 degrees, but we'll just call it 55 for now, because if it can stop on grip tape with really grippy rock creeper tires and slide backwards on its own slowly, it's probably at its peak. Next, we're going to check the Chevy C10. Now, this one is basically stock. It's got upgraded shocks, a couple metal upgrades, but same wheels and same rock creeper tires. It is quite a bit lighter, but it did good. I even hopped it a few times, bounced it. No big deal, handled it just fine. Then we jumped up to 50 degrees. It did great. Yeah, didn't need all that low down weight, but then again, this doesn't have a hard body like the Bronco. The light Lexan body mixed with the lower, heavier weight, and the little bit of weight that is added, got up there just fine. Last, we're going to do 55 degrees again, see if this can do it. And it does it. You can see that front driver's side tire is sticking up in the air. this is pretty much its limit as well. But it didn't particularly fail by any means. I did try and bounce the throttle a little. I did turn left to right. I did a little bit of a power jump, and it did just fine. It held on there well. When I rolled backwards and then gunned it forwards, you can see it flew backwards, but it did good. So overall, I'm happy with the performance of all three. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This is the new test bench, and I'm excited to try it on other vehicles. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.